Hello and welcome to this Power Automate in a Day, Lab 11. In this exercise, you will encapsulate the call to the weather service in a custom connector. So you will create a custom connector from scratch. And you will call this custom connector from a Power Automate flow. Let's go. Okay, so let's create our custom connector. Let's go to make.powerautomate.com. Make sure you are in the good environment. And normally you should see custom connector. If you don't see it, click more and you might find it here. As you can see, we can pin features to the left toolbar. And if you still don't find it, click discover. And normally you should find custom connector here, from here, right? Okay. So let's click custom connector. Create a custom connector. There are different ways to create a custom connector, but let's create it from blank. Let's name it something like Power Automate in a Day. Weather. Yeah, it should be shorter. So let's say Power Out in a Day, something like this. Click continue. And now you can associate the connector with a picture. So let's grab a picture if you want. That's not mandatory, but it is recommended. Okay, and you can specify a color, background color, a description, or to create a custom connector. Connection to a weather service. Okay. We don't provide connectivity to on-prem, and the API should be dataservice.aqweather.com. So that should be the host API. Okay. As you can see, whatever we do here is actually implemented in a file called a Swagger file. Okay. So you can always verify what has been implemented in background. Let's go to the next tab, security. We have to specify that we want to provide an API key security. Let's name the parameter for this API key. So API key, parameter name should be API key. And you can put it in, for instance, in query or header. Okay. And we can create an action. So click new action on the left, which is actually the function that you're going to call on the connector. So get the weather, get the current weather in a city. This is a description, and the operation ID, which is actually the name of the function that you will provide, is get weather. Okay. Now you need to create a request definition, and you can do that by importing data from a sample. So just the sample request, just paste your sample request, and we need to specify that we have to provide the location key or location code. This is a location code, right? So if we put that under brace, so let's call it location key. Let's put it under brace. Under brace. Don't forget to put the rest of the request in there. Import. Okay, it generates this request parameter. So the path should be location key. So it's in the path of the request. In the query string, we have two options, API key and details. So API key, we can delete it because we will provide it at the level of the connector, not at the level of the action. So we'll create a connection and we can reuse a connection for several actions. So detail, and detail can be true or false. So we can edit the detail. Edit, and we can provide description, summary, and the default value should be false. So if you don't specify anything, it will be false. Description, provide more details on the weather. Summary, same thing, more details. Okay, default value false, okay. It's not required. By default, it's going to be false. Type is bool, okay, that is fine. Can click advance here. Okay. Let's go back, and we can also work at the level of the okay, now let's define the response. Click default to provide more information about the format of the response. Click default. And you can import an answer, a response. So from the previous call that you did in the browser, paste the answer from the location service. So the system will analyze all the fields of the response, will bring this, and as you can see, we have actually several values, right? So we have value for the temperature in imperial, and we have value for temperature in metrics. Okay, so we can, to avoid any confusion, we can edit the value field. So let's take a look at the Swagger just by curiosity. Okay, so we have, let's edit value here. And I think this one should be the metrics, right? So let's call it metrics. or metric temperature, metric value. Same for the description. And that is important. The value should be a float, so number, type, and format float. And we have to do the same thing for the imperial value, because if you don't change that, you'll get an error in your connector. So here, let's call it imperial value, temperature imperial. And same down below. Switch to, yeah, it was number, float, that's fine. Let's see in the Swagger if everything looks fine. It is fine. Is it imperial? I think, yeah. This is the matrix. This is the imperial. So it was the other one. Sorry about this. So this is temperature imperial, the first one, and the second one is metric. Sorry. It's not a big deal, but metric value. And that's the benefit of checking the Swagger file, because you know exactly where you work in the Swagger. Now it should be better. So we have a metric value, and imperial value. Okay, that's correct. All right. So I think we are ready to deploy that. Okay, everything looks fine. We have the response. We have defined the request. Now, if we need to put some .NET code, some logic here, we can do that. That's interesting. So we can put some .NET code. And we can test the connector. But before testing, we have to create the connector. So we just need to click Create Connector, and then we can test. So create. So if we click on test, we have to create a connection just for testing. And when you create a connection, we will be requested to provide the API key, which is this one in my case. Okay. Create connection for the test. Right? Don't forget to wait a little bit, and then you have to refresh. You have to make sure that the connection you have created is selected, it is the good one. So we need to refresh a bit. And then you can get to operation, where you have to provide the location key. Again, this is this. That's the one for Brussels. Details by default is false, so fine. We can test this, and we get the 200 response, which is fine. So we get an array of a JSON containing an array. Okay, and fine. So what we need to do is we can close this and we can create a flow that will, this is our connector. So our connector, all the custom connector can show up in the custom connector pane, right? You can also put a custom connector. And now let's go to a solution and let's create a cloud flow that will call this custom connector. So automation, cloud flow, instant flow. Select manually trigger a flow. Lab 11 space dash test custom connector. Create. We are in the classic designer. And now in the custom pane category, we can see our connector. Get current weather in a city. That's nice. So we need to provide a connection, create a connection. So let's provide a name for this connection. And the API key for the connection, which is this. Create, then the connection will be create, actually connection reference. And now we have to provide a location key for Brussels, which is this one. Cool. And next step is we will grab the metric, the temperature in metric. Let's put a compose. And in the compose, temperature in Brussels. And don't forget that it returns an array. So the connector returns an array, a JSON array. So let's save this just to switch to the new connector, the new designer. And let's grab this metric temperature, dynamic content, select the custom connector. You see all the value, you have more. And let's see if we have temperature metric value. Yes, it was there. Yes. Any other one? No. And of course, an apply to each is generated because we get an array from the custom connector. And if we test this, run flow, and that works. 7.6. Which is actually the current weather in, this one is an old weather, but at current time, the current weather is 7 degrees. Okay. Okay, cool. If we check, yes, 7.6. Yes, 7.6. Now, the good practice is to create a custom connector in the solution, right? So all the custom connectors are here, but you can deploy them from a solution. Indeed, in a solution, you have here new automation custom connector. So let's add the existing custom connector, outside Dataverse because it's not in the solution. Add, and our custom connector is there ready to be deployed. Okay, so it's there. I click and I can edit. Okay, so it looks fine. Swagger is there. Congratulations, you did create your first custom connector. I hope that you enjoyed this lab. We'll provide a more advanced lab on custom connector in the future. Thank you.